Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have a devotion. We're in Matthew chapter 11. Here's verse 16. To what should I compare this generation? It's like children sitting in the marketplaces who call out to other children. We played the flute for you, but you didn't dance. We sang a lament, but you didn't mourn. All right, let's talk about this. This comes on the heels of this teaching about John the Baptist, who sent his disciples to ask Jesus, like, are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else? All right, this has a variety of interpretations. I think that it really was John the Baptist sitting in jail, awaiting his own beheading and struggling. I've literally been about this ministry of proclaiming the way of Jesus before I was even born, and now it's not turned out at all the way that I thought it would. The greatest preacher ever born of a woman, who is considered the least in this earth, the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, is facing this deep, dark struggle. I've heard, I've read commentators and stuff like J.C. Ryle, whose commentary on Matthew I've read, he believes that this is a teaching moment for John the Baptist's disciples. Like John the Baptist sent his disciples to ask Jesus that question because he wanted them to hear the answer, not because he was struggling with doubt, but maybe they were. I think that it was legitimate of John to feel like things hadn't turned out how he thought they would. It doesn't mean that God lacked control in the situation. Obviously he did. It just wasn't what John expected. Now, in response to this, Jesus has given this report. Go and report to John what you hear and see. This is earlier in the chapter 11, verse 4. And here's verse 5. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, those with leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor are told the good news. And blessed is the one who isn't offended by me. So that's this list of deeds that Jesus refers to, providing context for what is to come. Wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. That's in verse 19. But in this opening, he gives this example from a children's game. He says, look, if anyone's willing to accept that he, John the Baptist, is the Elijah who is to come, let anyone who hears, listen. So even though John the Baptist had previously denied, I think out of humility, that he was the Elijah prophesied by the Old Testament, Jesus says, if anyone will listen, let him hear. To what should I compare this generation? That's how verse 16 opens. It's like little children sitting in the marketplaces, and they're playing this game that's similar to Simon Says, just this ancient game. And the way this game worked was you'd play the flute and then people would dance. And if they sang, they had to pretend to mourn. So while the flute was playing, the kids would all pretend to be happy. And while the musician kids were singing this lament song, they had to grieve. And then it's like you're walking through the marketplace and you have these kids and they're playing this game, and maybe it's going well at first. When the flute is played, the kids dance. And when the song is sang, the kids pretend to cry and mourn. But now things have gone sour. The game isn't working anymore. The one who's playing the flute is being ignored, and the one who's singing the song is being ignored. When he plays the flute, the kids don't dance. When he sings the song, the kids don't mourn. Like, what? I'm doing what you need me to do. Like, what? To what should I compare this generation? You're like kids in the marketplace who aren't playing the game right. All right, when the flute plays, you don't dance. And when the song is sung, you're not mourning. All right, look, I mean, like, the dead have been raised, the lepers have been healed, the blind can see, the poor have heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. Like, it's all been proclaimed, but you're not repenting. That's how he likens the stubborn generation around him, who looked at John the Baptist, and rather than seeing the greatest prophet ever born, the greatest preacher ever born, they just criticize him for not eating and drinking, as they criticize Jesus for eating and for drinking. They're like the kids in the street, in the marketplace, failing to properly cooperate with the Simon Says gang, with the flute and the song. Like, you demand that your prophet not eat or drink. Well, guess what? That's John the Baptist. And you say you look at John the Baptist and you say that he has a demon. And then I do eat and I do drink, and you say that he's a friend of tax collectors and sinners. So it doesn't matter whether the flute's playing or the lament is being sung. You're not cooperating. Whether we eat and drink or we abstain from eating and drinking, you're not listening. You're not listening to John. You're not listening to me. Okay, you're not responding to the flute or to the lament. Look, in the end, wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. He has just personified and likened himself to Sophia, the personification of wisdom in Proverbs, like especially in early on, I think in chapter 3, and then in Proverbs chapter 8, verses 32 through 36, and then again coming up at the close of Proverbs. It's like wisdom is calling out to people. Okay, look, believe in me, stop being idiots, right, in the Jesse Campbell translation. And then people are just rejecting her. He has just aligned himself with wisdom. He is indeed the Logos. He is the Word. That's how John's gospel opens. And then people aren't listening to him. They weren't listening to his forerunner, John the Baptist. They're not listening to Jesus. They criticized John the Baptist because he wouldn't eat and drink. And they criticized Jesus because he would eat, because he would drink. And so look, that's what this stubborn generation is like. You're like the little kids in the marketplace who aren't playing the Simon Says game right. It doesn't matter if the flute is playing or the lament is being sung. It doesn't matter if John the Baptist is preaching to you or if I'm preaching to you. You're just not listening. You're hard-hearted. But in the end, look, wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. And we'll talk more about that verse tomorrow.